Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the final episode of the Jiu-Jitsu Times podcast. Not forever, but just for 2020. And man, we just had to put a button on this absolute corpse of a year and send it out the door. So without further ado, let's get right into it. I am your host, Kevin Bradley, joined as always by my co-host, Mr. Kevin Gallagher. And we want to get right into it, but the problem is we can't do it without a brief mention of our sponsors, your friends and ours, our ride or dies for this absolutely turbulent shit year. You know I'm talking about No Judges Needed. Your one-stop shop for all of your grappling/combat sports needs. I'm talking fight gear like rash guards and shorts. And if you play the pajama game, some gis. Maybe go out there and check out one Mr. Kevin Gallagher rocking that gi, looking all spiffy as fuck. And for everybody who wants to let the outside world know how much of a killer you are, we got casual wear. They've got graphic design tees and hoodies. Let everyone know you train, because why are you doing this if it's not for social media clout? I defy you. Now, we know end of the year, after the holidays, you're probably thinking, man, I just spent a ton of money, or I got a bunch of money from my relatives and no place to spend it. Well, we're here to help you out. Use the promo code JJT at checkout for 20% off all purchases. It's savings, people. Why would you turn down savings? This year has taken so much from all of us, and we're giving a little back to you. So go run to the website. Go to nojudgesneeded.com right now. You know, the year might the internet might delete it. We don't know what's going to happen. It's the last little bit of 2020. So just go. We're trying to get you savings, damn it. All right. No Judges Needed. Thank you so much for sticking with us this year. It's been mania. The house might collapse on me. That's how stressed I am. Getting to the end of this year feels like a panic attack, because I don't know when out of nowhere I could get hit by a car, or a bull could show up and skewer me with its horns. But I'm going to calm down.
That was impressive.
Calm down, because we're here to put a final note on this year. And Kev, I just want to say at the start, You've been my partner in crime throughout this, and I just want to say thank you, because holy shit, it's been rough.
My ride or die.
Ride or die. How are you doing at this last day of 2020? We're filming this on New Year's.
This is it's 3:00 Eastern time on New Year's Day, and I'm doing okay, but I'm also concerned about the next 12 hours, just to make sure we get through that point, because you never know what could happen until the end of this day is over. So 2020 is not over until it's officially over. So no one say it couldn't get any worse. Thank God this thing's behind us, because you never know what evil 2020 has lurking for us around the corner.
There was this great comic that I saw online that was it was like a workstation, like a clock-in station at work, and coronavirus was clocking out. And he's like, "Oh, hey man, how you doing?" And aliens were like, "Hey bro, thanks for clocking out. I'll take it from here." And I'm like, "Fuck, you know what? Maybe aliens might just show up and be like, "Hey guys, it's our time."
Yeah, you never know what the rest of this year has held for us. So I'm doing my best to try to stay away from trouble as much as I can until midnight, when this thing blows through.
Now, I want to take us back a little bit, because we started in late 2019, in November. But it really feels like 2020 was where we did most of our
right.
operating.
The first three shows were just us literally, talking to ourselves over each other, and it was a fun little trial and error to see how we got our chemistry set up.
Again, we straight up forgot to record the first ever episode, so that was so great in the void, and I'm just like, oh man, this is gonna be.
Some of our best work yet. Some bad lost to the technology guys.
We solved income inequality. We solved tax rate. We solved race relations. All of that, and I think we even cured cancer. And then we just thought we'd look at it after, but it's gone now. It's in the ether.
We officially crowned Gordon Ryan the king of jiu-jitsu. It was
exactly right.
we had video, an equation to write it up.
Actually, during the broadcast, Gordon showed up. And he tried to fight me, and on camera, I beat him pretty hand over fist. And
If we would have recorded, if we only would have recorded that.
It's funny because I remember while I was beating up Gordon, Andre Galvao and Felipe Pena showed up at your house, and you beat them both at the same time. It was crazy, but no one's ever going to see that, you know.
Never.
But you'll just
we'll never be seen by the public eye.
Yeah, so we did a lot this year. A lot of crazy stuff happened, but then, you know, COVID slowed us down quite a bit. If I remember correctly, you had a concussion at around the start of COVID.
I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah. I had a nasty little concussion that was hovering around right in the beginning of the COVID, like right when COVID first started breaking. And man, it made me nuts. You think about the hysteria surrounding the first 2 months of COVID. And then now think about living through that with a traumatic brain injury. Trying to process, I lost my shit. I'll be the first to say that I kind of went off the deep end for about 3 months, but I managed to hold it together well enough to get to this point.
I wanted to reiterate that you were going through it in a way that, you know, obviously people everywhere had a rough time, but man,
I don't like this. I don't like this year in review now, Kev. I forgot about that. That was some of those earlier episodes, the first couple months of the year this year when COVID broke were pretty funny. I want to go back and watch a few of the you never know what pops out Uncle Coach Kevin's mouth sometimes when his brain's ringing.
Well, I just wanted to I wanted to bring that up only to say, you know, I saw you have to struggle with that, and you really came through and focused in. And how great is it that you can look back on that rough time and now things are a little better. You know, but the world was so scary back in those early days because no one really knew what was going to happen.
Well, it was nuts when COVID first broke. I mean, it was, you know, we're getting to the point now where, you know, I don't 100% believe the narrative that the media is out to get us and the world is out to get us, but I will lean towards the fact that they may have created a bit more undue hysteria in those early days when we look back in retrospect into what is happening now. Because I can remember back in March and April when things were first getting going, and we had the constant stream from those European countries. COVID's coming, and they were rushing dead bodies out of the hospitals in Italy, and the city was shut down and bedlam. And I literally thought that, you know, the zombie apocalypse was on the way coming across the Atlantic Ocean, and now we see, you know, and I'm by no means downplaying COVID at all. I'm not trying to say that go get vaccinated, wear your mask, do the things you're supposed to do. It's still a very deadly disease, but I think we're coming to the realization that it might not be the apocalyptic, whatever. I can't think of the word. I combined it two words, but you know, event end event, humanity ending event that we thought it might be.
I definitely think it just. I agree, but I also think it highlighted how unprepared we were for anything like this.
That too.
You know, like I think there should have been a lot more in place to sort of keep us at least from completely having to shut everything down. You know, people forget how empty New York's like streets were. Like Central Park was basically empty. Times Square was empty. People were going there just to take pictures of it, like on The Last Man on Earth.
Right.
And I know it's tough to think of when things were really getting serious. It seemed selfish to think immediately about how this would affect jiu-jitsu, but I couldn't help but think, man, I wonder when we're going to have what people are going to say, hey, this art where you wrestle each other in a sweaty room, maybe you should cancel it. And I wanted to take us back to like the first time you heard the first person to signal the alarm about shutting down was Keenan. Like he was the first guy.
That's right. He was the first one to toot that horn, and everything kind of went after that. I remember. Oh God, you got a good memory, Kev. That's impressive.
I mean, I had to go back and list on all the things that were happening.
That's why you're the brains of this outfit. You're very prepared. I'm happy for that.
Yeah. So like going back, Keenan was the first guy to say, hey, all my school is closing down indefinitely. He said indefinitely. We don't know when we're going to come back. And everybody gave him quite a bit of shit over it. I remember the DDS guys were like, he was already beefing with them pretty bad, but like they came on and said, hey, stupid idiot. Gary Tonin was like, bad, like this is dumb. But I also think that was from they're business owners and they don't want a trend that happens where they have to like lose a lot of money and risk losing a lot of their students. But then Marcelo closed. Keenan and then Marcelo, and then everyone was kind of like, "Oh, okay, hey, all right, well, we're not going to say anything about Marcelo."
Speaking of Marcelo Garcia, Marcelo Garcia hasn't been open since he closed up. His gym has not been open for almost a year now. I was talking to Matt Arroyo, and he's pretty tight with Marcelo. I mean, he talks to him quite a bit. My head instructor, Matt Arroyo, and he told me that he talked to Marcelo the other day, and Marcelo was like, "Yeah, I haven't been open since that time. That first time I closed, we've been closed the entire time since then." That's insane to me. That's nuts to me.
You think? I think that happened about like I don't know if it was the whole year, but I'm guessing March. About March was when.
Right. That's when everything started going off the.
I remember I did a tournament on like March 1st, and I remember thinking, all right, I did my tournament, and then the week after I just ate I drank vodka and ate cheesecake every day. I gained 15 pounds, and I was just like, all right, I'll get back in the gym. Everything shut down. I'm like,
vodka and cheesecake. I guess whatever floats your boat. It's an odd combination to me, but
hey man, it was a lot of tiramisu too. Oh man. I was living my fat boy life. I felt like I'm immortal. I'll never die. I'll never age.
Think about that for a second, though. Think about all of the people that are in the same boat as you did. Woke up, January 1st, 2020, looking about what their jiu-jitsu goals are going to be for they're going to compete this year. I'm going to do a couple competitions, when it's March, maybe you got 2 or 3 in, and then all of a sudden when you're just getting your momentum going, you're just ready to keep going and conquer this year. What happens? Boom, they pull the rug out from you. You can't train anymore. Just like that. It's crazy. It's a crazy thing.
So many people were derailed, and this is interrupting our timeline, just kind of a look back at how crazy this year's been. But I want to give a shout out to anyone who has stayed committed to some form of self-improvement. Now, I'm not saying if you got completely derailed, guess what? I'm with you. I had a pretty shit year in terms of sticking with some commitments, but I do understand that there are people out there who know how hard jiu-jitsu is. And they're it's a meme, you get 1 stripe and you're out. You get your blue belt and you're out. There's never been a better excuse to quit jiu-jitsu than this pandemic. So to anybody who's stuck with it in some form, even though it's tough and even though you might have had to only look at instructionals online at home or drill with your buddies in your basement, thank you. Because, this sport, it's wounded right now. How many gyms do we know personally that have closed down or had to move to a smaller building?
And not just rinky-dink gyms, some real big gyms. We had Coyote's gym famously closed
down. Gary Tonin had to move, close one of his locations.
He hasn't closed yet, but hasn't been opened. You can't. You got to imagine, no matter what they're going through, no matter how deep their pockets are, they got to keep paying rent on a piece of property right in the middle of freaking Midtown in Manhattan. That can't be cheap at all when you're not bringing income in.
Yeah, and I got it. The gyms that tried to operate but were fined by local law enforcement for whatever reason. It's rough. The margins on this sport are already so narrow, and there was no real support for something like this. So to everybody that kept training, good on you.
It's equally impressive that throughout all of the roadblocks and throughout all the problems and things we've had to deal with over the course of this year with COVID, it's amazing to me. I just thought about this the other day, the fact that we still have things to talk about. We still have figured out a way to keep jiu-jitsu alive. The competitive jiu-jitsu scene is alive. Like Seth Daniels, kudos to you for out there plugging away, man, doing what you do. Like people can talk trash about Seth as much as you want. He's not the easiest person to get along with. He's going to tell you the way it is. And sometimes it's not what people want to hear, but that's the person that he is. But you can't say enough about that guy for really going out there and plugging away and doing what he loves to keep this sport of jiu-jitsu and the momentum about jiu-jitsu going. It's like he's just full speed ahead, against the hurricane. It reminds me of that, the meme with the guy with the American flag with the hurricane blowing in his face, and he's out there banging his head in the air. That's Seth Daniels right now, carrying jiu-jitsu to the future. And I want to thank you and Ryan McGuire and the guys over at Grappling, Kale Sonnen and what's her name? I forget. Heather Stanton. Thank you all, you guys, for just thumbing your nose in the air and figuring out a way to keep this thing going, because it's keeping interest alive in jiu-jitsu and helping us to be able to continue having podcasts and interviewing guys. And even though people can't train, they can at least watch some things on TV. They can watch their favorite competitors. Thank you for all that stuff.
I would also like to add to that list. I know we're not covering everybody, but David Aguzy of Grappling Industries, another guy who's maintained a lot of big shows at the local, super local level, going around giving people the chance to compete. Also, Jordan Peitzman, the madman from Iowa. He's building something really special with Subspection down there.
Josh LeDuc.
Josh LeDuc.
He just saved that women's only. I forget what it was called. Dangerous Ladies of Jiu-Jitsu. I think it was the tournament. Couple weeks back, about a month or so back. Continue to plug away with Zapatero.
I will say though that I know there was some Grappling Industry shows into quarantine that were sort of on the books and were able to be held, but if we look back at that time, there was really nothing going on. The Third Coast Grappling had been canceled. A lot of events were being canceled days before they were set to premiere. Everything kind of got started again when Submission Underground 12 happened. And it got announced
from the grain silo in Oregon.
I'm here. And we're still doing this. We're still having this event. And, Kevin Casey, he might unseat he might unseat Craig Jones and take that belt.
And it really is true. That's very true because amidst everything, Chael Sonnen was like, it ain't going to happen. We'll figure it out. We'll do whatever we're going to do. And literally almost like pirate radio style, almost in a corner without anybody knowing, like with the cops possibly breaking the door down if they found out the spot he was at. It had that kind of feel. And God bless the freaking Submission Underground guys. I love that promotion so much. I hope it never goes away. I don't care if the jiu-jitsu sucks. I don't give a shit. Well, but I don't care.
You can make like a document after we got the chance to talk to Heather. And I want learning more about what went into that event kind of makes the story even more miraculous because Chael was on air saying, yeah, we're working with law enforcement. We're working with the local government. And then we asked Heather about it, and she's like, yeah, he said that. We kind of
It was like clandestine meetings in airports and driving people to different hotels. It's just the real story reality.
And I think that the maverick way that this happened, it was the only way it was ever gonna happen. Someone like that with enough clout had to take the chance and just throw an event out there into the ether and see if it could happen. And I think without Submission Underground 12, it's very likely that we might have not have seen any real jiu-jitsu this year. Like think about nationals, think about the IBJJF Pans, think about Third Coast Grappling Kumites. Those were huge this year. And before Submission Underground 12, we didn't know if anything was going to happen. You and I were worried that we were just going to have to talk about.
It was a very real feeling that everything we were going to do was going to fall apart. What we're going to do? We're going to talk about like jiu-jitsu sequences and try to dig up every old freaking jiu-jitsu legend we can find that would jump on the show with us. It was going to be hard work. I mean, there was definitely feelings of concern of like this new renaissance that jiu-jitsu has experienced. This new sudden boom in professional jiu-jitsu and full jiu-jitsu academies across the nation was going to end because COVID was going to kill it.
I don't know how much I can talk about, but behind the scenes at the JJT, we were worried about our jobs, and being able to do this like thing that we all love so much, that I get so much joy out of talking with these athletes, because I feel like every time I see Max Kellerman or anyone from ESPN try and talk about grappling, I just kind of got to bang my head into a piece of wood until I lose consciousness. So because really even though it's more popular than it's ever been, if guys like us aren't out there talking about it the way we want to talk about it, no one will. People will just say, Connor is a striker and Dustin Poirier is a grappler. And traditionally, the grappler doing the striker, I'm never getting a job at ESPN now.
End of story, right? End of interview, right?
End of interview. But I think it's important. I really just wanted in this episode, I wanted to sort of make a time capsule. So, like when we're on episode 200 or 300, we can look back and see how much fear there was. How many times did we bring someone on who just was like, man, it's scary.
It's interesting too, because when you bring up the idea of these uneducated sportscasters that don't necessarily understand the finer details of grappling and their commentators, it's interesting to talk about that. The ESPN buyout of the UFC happened right around the time of COVID, so we haven't even really had an opportunity to discuss that because we've been so anesthetized to the fact, oh my God, there's actually still a UFC. I can't believe they're still going to Fight Island and they're still being able to hold events with all the COVID going. But the reality of it is throughout all of that, there's been the growing pains of announcers trying to figure out how to commentate correctly for UFC fights in the mainstream ESPN media, being able to really decipher the nuances of what MMA really entails.
I think we talked about Submission Underground, but we can't not talk about the UFC. And in a time where Major League Baseball was put on hold, the hockey was put on hold, football put on hold, basketball put on hold, just right before like the finals, and we had all this craziness happening. The first real sports to get back into the game in a real way were combat sports, and they were throwing things at the wall to see what would work. We had events at the UFC Performance Center. We had completely closed off events with no audience. In fact, we're still having that. And then we had Yas Island for a while. How did it feel to see the sport go so far out of its way to maintain this hot streak that it's been experiencing?
And once again, we can look at Dana White and we can say that he was being careless. We could say that he was taking too many chances with the athletes' lives and the fact that COVID was unknown at that time and stuff like that. Or we could look at Dana White and say that he was a trailblazer that said, we're not going to, show must go on. We're going to figure this out. We're a $1 billion company, $5 billion company. We can figure out a way to keep people safe. We can isolate athletes. We can do whatever we have to do to keep the wheels turning so we can have success. And he did it. And it's arguably the template for success that other sporting events were using now. They could look at what they did at the UFC and say, okay, well, the UFC managed to figure out a way to keep everybody safe and still keep the show going. Maybe now we can take some of the things that Dana White has used and use it to our benefit to keep the NBA going, to keep the NHL going, to keep the NFL going. So hats off to those guys. Whatever you believe, whatever you think was right or wrong, they trailblazed and they managed to figure out a way to keep us entertained, to keep us going through these hard times. And that's important.
Now that we've covered a lot of the big events and the timelines and the ever evolving nature of COVID and whatnot in this year, I would love to talk about some of the big, just like fights and matches and events that we got to see happen, because I think that despite everything, we saw some absolute magic on the mats and in the cage this year. We'll talk about Gaethje Ferguson, talking about Khabib being the GOAT, just Adesanya's rise, So let's start with MMA. Were there any matches and or events in the world of mixed martial arts that really stood out to you? And were any of them bigger than when Henry Cejudo was just mean to you on the street?
I have to bring that up. I forgot about that. I was thinking about that the other day. It's funny you brought that up. I think the one you left off that list that I think was arguably the under the radar greatest thing that happened in MMA, the greatest event that happened in MMA this year was the Daniel Cormier and Michael Stipe fight. I kept Stipe Miocic fight. You didn't think I was going to get his name right, did you?
Not this year, no.
Yeah, right. I really believe that was probably the greatest heavyweight fight of all time. Maybe one of the most amazing fights in the history of the UFC, simply because of the drama that was involved, the ebb and flow of the match, and watching two amazing competitors, two amazing figures, legendary figures of MMA go at it head to head to come out to see who could possibly be in the GOAT contention of the heavyweight division, the greatest guy to ever do it. And it was amazing to see those two guys so evenly matched go at it round for round, and then watching Stipe eventually have a little bit more than Cormier come out on top. It was such an amazing match. I remember I wrote an article about that. It was awesome to watch.
I think that what was really interesting about all of those fights was how much of an underdog people were building Stipe into. The first fight, Daniel came in as the favorite for a lot of big pundits, and I think that Stipe had a lot of shine on his name. He was coming off a big win against Francis Ngannou, who was at that point an unstoppable killing machine. So his beating him helped his name a lot. But Cormier put on such a great performance in that first match that a lot of people didn't know if they wanted a trilogy, and then he went and defeated Derek Lewis, the Black Beast, one of the funniest guys in MMA, and one of the big parts of our second episode when we talked about how jiu-jitsu doesn't work.
That's right. I was at that fight, Madison Square Garden fight. That was a great fight. Matt on that card.
Yeah, he did. Steamroller.
I did the ADCC trials that same exact day. We had to watch Matt Frivola's fight, driving from Jersey into Madison Square Garden on my cell phone in the dashboard of the car. We got there just in time to see Jacare Souza and Tim Weidman, and then the main event was Cormier and Derek Lewis.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Going to Madison Square Garden. First time I've ever been to Madison Square Garden, by the way, maybe a little bit more than we should talk about. But if you've never been to Madison Square Garden, it's as someone that has grown up a fight fan over the last 40 years, boxing matches, all the things where, what fighting and hand-to-hand combat matches and combat athletics is all about. Being able to go to Madison Square Garden is like going to the Coliseum or to the Vatican. It's an era. There's so many amazing fights have been in that building. To be able to see a fight there was truly something special.
Yeah, fights, concerts. It's the greatest stage in entertainment for a lot of people, and you can't beat it. And I remember going into the second fight, a lot of people were thinking it's going to be a wash. Stipe, he's not going to be able to deal with Cormier on the ground. Cormier will take him to the ground. It's just going to be lights out. And I was bummed about that just because I felt like Stipe is a phenomenally resilient guy, and he's also craftier than people give him credit for. People kind of just build him into being this dumb dude, but he is a very, very technical guy with a very diverse skill set. And seeing him come out on top with just those body shots in the second fight, he came out of nowhere. Daniel abandoned taking him to the ground, and I think that was to his detriment. But I'm not going to backseat quarterback Daniel Cormier on when he should take someone down or not. Exactly.
You don't tell the Olympic wrestler when he's supposed to shoot a single leg or a high crotch.
It's just he should take him down.
He should totally take him down. I would have took him down.
He should take him down.
The problem with Stipe has always been the fact, and we've talked about this before in previous shows, the fact that he's a working man. He's a blue collar guy. He's not going to be out there hogging for the spotlight. He gets off peak. He still works at the firehouse in Cleveland, where he's from. He's not a spotlight guy. He doesn't care about the headlines. He doesn't care about the attention. He goes out there, does his job, gets out, goes home, drinks a beer, and gets back to the firehouse. It's things like that make him kind of fly under the radar as the amazing athlete he is. But I think he got the longest winning streak in the history of the heavyweight division. It's something to be said. He's an amazing athlete, an amazing heavyweight that oftentimes doesn't get the recognition because he's not that flashy guy. He's a workhorse. His boxing's real sharp and crisp. He throws that long jab and the long two. Real hard to take down, but he's going to outwork you and he's going to win every fight.
His voice reminds me of the roughest, most in need of repair section of I-95. Just like this road that's been here forever. Just like it's fucking here, and if you don't like it, go fuck yourself. That's a pothole. Fuck you.
He's a monstrous guy. Huge guy.
And I think that that second fight definitely made everyone want the trilogy. Everyone was just like, holy shit, we need this to happen. Right. And that last fight, oh my God.
Amazing.
Both of them beating the brakes off of each other. And we got to see a phenomenal. No one came away looking like crap after that. Yeah. Daniel, he was on his way out the door in a lot of ways, and I don't know if he's officially made his retirement. I think he has. I'm pretty sure he has.
He said it in the cage.
Yeah.
I think he talked about he's going to go home, talk to the family, and see where we stand, but I think he said he was done.
Yeah, and Stipe came out as the ruler of a division. And in divisions like the UFC's, so many people could claim on the best day to be the guy, even if they don't have the belt, but Stipe's the guy. You know, and I'm
we'll
really
see.
happy
There's
for
not a
him.
whole lot of heavyweights out there. With Nagano already beat Nagano. He might have Nagano's recipe for defeat in his bag. We'll see if they fight again. But I don't think there's too many guys out there that are in the heavyweight division that are really going to give Stipe a run for his money. I don't know that there's that star power in the heavyweight division right now.
As of fairly recently, there is, so we got that going for us. But assuming Jones does make the leap, he hasn't had.
Is that official yet? If they made that, I mean, they don't even know that. I don't know if it's nothing's official until Dana White says so. And when I never pay attention to anything until I see Dana White, UFC, John Jones will be fighting his next fight at heavyweight. It's done. We've got a date set, contract signed, because there's so much garbage out there. Because I still think the big fight for him is to fight Alessandro. I think Alessandro is going to fight Sandra's going to fight
Polish powerhouse.
Powerhouse. If he beats him, I think the bigger money fight right now and the smarter fight for John Jones, to tell you the truth, is to go down to fight Alessandro or have Alessandro come up and fight him at light heavyweight. Because then you're going to have – I think so. I think, in my opinion, looking at the way things are being set up, I think that's what they're setting up right now. I think they're going to have Alessandro. But again, he's got to beat that big Polish guy. That's good. Like, don't get it twisted. He's another one that flew under the radar that all of a sudden we're not really talking about, but he starched Johnny
Luke
Walker.
Rockhold, he starched Johnny Walker. What he did to Luke Rockhold was ridiculous.
Right.
I think, and I'm not saying Luke Rockhold is like the best of the best, but he's a former champion. He was going up to a weight class that I think he's more suited to, just because he's very tall for.
He had a hard cut. We had a hard cut to get down. Hard cut to get down to middleweight.
Yeah, and like at light heavyweight, I think he was still like an inch taller than Jan. So like that's where he lives. And Jan just absolutely, it looked like he was in a fucking video game. Like he just like built up his power meter and was just like, I'm gonna do my super move now, and you're just gonna go to sleep.
He's another one, not flashy. Doesn't do a whole lot of crazy things. He just walks forward and he throws those big power shots. He's very good at doing simple things, cutting the ring off, blocking, staying safe. And when he touches you, every punch he throws is perfectly balanced. When he touches you, you go down. It's over. It's a lights out, good night shot when he touches you.
Now, I think there's a few people that could claim to have had the most successful year in MMA. Cejudo beat Dominic Cruz to seemingly retire as the triple champ, one of the most successful combat sports athletes of all time. Adesanya defended his belt, maintained his undefeated record against an incredibly game opponent. Seemingly no limit for this guy. He's going to just jump around until there's a weight class that involves him fighting an actual fucking truck. You had Jones seemingly go around a little bit less so, just because of his performances. But you also have Habib. So and then you can't talk about the GOATs without talking about Amanda Nunes. She didn't fight a whole lot, but she's without a doubt the greatest living female MMA fighter next to Shevchenko. And they might do it again. Who knows? Who do you think had the year?
Such a tough question to answer there, man. I mean, you could put that hat on a lot of different fighters who made the biggest impact. It's difficult. I think, when you talk about who was the greatest for the long haul, you have to kind of go Alessandro, just because he's had more than one fight. He fought twice this year. So he's the only one on that list that has fought multiple times in the same year. Gaethje had his amazing fight against Ferguson. He's up in that contention, up in that talk for sure. And then, it's hard. It's funny because I kind of forgot about Cejudo in the mix because it happened so long ago. I don't know that I'm putting Cejudo in the same conversation as Khabib as far as greatest martial artist of all time, maybe the greatest combat athletic of all time, just if you talk about the gold medal in the Olympics that he won, and then on top of that, the three championship titles. I'm going to probably go with Khabib, just because I don't think that there was a more dominant presence in the UFC this year than what we saw from Khabib's performance in his last fight. I mean, he simply starched a very, very, very tough guy in Justin Gaethje, really freaking just outclassed him, outworked him in every aspect of fighting. He was better on the feet, better on the ground, and toyed with a world-class MMA fighter. and just showed us his greatness and retired on that note. I still think it's hard. I'd like to see him fight more. I wish he'd come back and fight. I still think he's going to. I think if Conor beats Poirier, they make Conor Khabib, and I don't care how stuck you are in your convictions. $30 million, $50 million is a whole lot of money. $100 million is a whole lot of money. And it'll be the biggest fight in the history of MMA.
I think, though, he's so legit, he might just donate that entire purse to some like charity. He seems fairly content in life. I'm going to say Khabib also, but for slightly different, like for added reasons, because I think it's so important to remember what he experienced personally this year. And we've all had a lot of difficulties, but to perform at the level he's performing at and to be as so dominant that people are truly starting to question what the hell could possibly be next for him, to wonder if he really should hang it up, because simply put, outside of some weird celebrity boxing match with like a YouTube kid, what really is there to challenge him? Is easy money in some kind of carnival fight, or potentially risk injury, but not really defeat against some game opponents. I feel like at this point he'd mainly be looking to preserve his health. He did all of this while also losing his trainer and father, Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov, to
influential figures in his life.
One of the most influential figures. He'd only just recently been able to corner him at a UFC event. It's got a gut. I don't care how stoic he appears. It had to have gutted him fairly hard to lose his father at what is such a stressful year for all of us. So I think the fact that he was able to maintain his dominance to that degree, while also dealing with, you lose your trainer, your best friend, and your father all in one to this pandemic that's ravaging the world. I can't overstate how impressive that is. And for me, that adds to his legacy. And that's why this year belongs to Nurmagomedov. No doubt.
I'll agree with that myself with you too. I don't think there's, and just on top of that, I don't think there's ever been a more dominant performer in the UFC. I don't think I've ever seen someone truly strike fear in the heart of their opponents and just completely steal every ounce of will away from them every time he's fought, as much as Khabib is. There's never been a fight in which his competitor was ever even in it, and that's so impressive to think that he's that good. So kudos to Khabib.
All right, yeah, and I think that on that point we should look more towards the grappling world. Although Khabib could probably win ADCC if he really could.
Maybe. So, I think there's a for that.
Also, we were talking with Chase Hooper, UFC newcomer, just had a big win. So hey, Chase, we love you. Come back, please. He was talking to us about how, like, once you've done MMA, like doing jiu-jitsu tournaments, like the stress is just gone. Like you could be doing it at the highest level, and it's like, oh, I'm not getting punched in the face. Okay, like this is fine. My heart rate's not going to go up. I might lose, but I'm not going to freak out either. And I think that with how much competition he's faced in the octagon, Khabib probably could face down Buchecha and be like, yeah, this is number one bullshit. You should give him a knife.
I agree with you, man. We'll see what the future holds for Khabib. I'd like to see him figure out a way to peek his head back in some kind of competition or other. I think that someone will figure out a way to dangle him enough money, even if it's not in the UFC. We'll probably see a big name grappling match with Khabib where he's going to get paid some big money just to go out there. He's a competitor and he's not ready to stop no matter what his convincers tell him to do. So I hope we get to see that.
All right. Now, I know that there's been a lot of grapplers that have made waves this year, and I know we already talked about Submission Underground, but it's really tough to think of 2020 as anything other than Mason Fowler's year.
Yeah, it's a good point.
The guy showed up at Submission Underground as the ultimate of underdogs. That Submission Underground was Craig Jones's home. He was the king in the octagon. He was beating everybody. He broke Vinny Magalhães's leg on camera, which is just weird to see. Going up against that guy, no one's rooting for you. No one's thinking you got a shot. not only does he beat Craig, he beats him again and has continued to defend his belt against several big names. And just recently against Ryan Bader just the other day in like under a minute. Like it was like a 10-second arm lock from bottom that got him. I don't know. I don't know if anyone's had as good a year as him. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, 100% when you talk about, probably the amount of money he's making grappling right now, it's been a pretty good year from him. You could talk about some names like Roberto Jimenez, John Combs has had a good year. A couple of the smaller guys. It's William Tackett's out there crushing it. Wagner's always winning. Cyborg had a big year. But it's difficult because there haven't really been any major events to talk about. As far as there's been lots of professional events, but nothing that could really solidify and signify who is the greatest grappler. We didn't really have an ADCC. The Worlds are kind of shot this year. We didn't have any like major top tier events with everyone invited. We've had a lot of guys that are continuing to perform on the circuit, but nothing to really signify who is the greatest. So when you talk about someone that is winning in the same event and he continues to knock off top tier guys one after the other, I don't think there's anyone but Mason Fowler on that list to really consider.
I mean, honestly, like no offense, but you would have been on the list, but you lost me some money on
I know.
Fight to Win.
I'm fat and out of shape, kid. Thanks for bringing.
Hey, man, 2021. Let's all agree to make 2021 the year of the hot body. We all get back in the gym. We get vaccinated. We get vaccinated as shit. We start doing trend. We just start pushing weight at the gym, doing squats, working on those compounds, and just get jacked as hell. Let's all do it.
we could talk a little bit about obviously Gordon Ryan finding his way down to Puerto Rico with the Danaher Death Squad.
Yeah.
R.I.P. to his father, Big Gord, died recently. Sad story, and but it doesn't take away from Gordon Ryan's sometimes tumultuous escapades into the Facebook world with some of the things he says and some of the tweets he says and some of his Facebook posts and Instagram's posts. But that's the way he is, and that's who he is, and he moved out of the city for that reason.
I mean, it's funny just to talk a little bit more about Big Gord. All respect to him. He definitely was a crazy cat, and I feel like everybody around him kind of understood the type of guy he was, and I think that was most epitomized when Gary Tonin on Instagram. I'm not going to show this because I don't know if it's okay, but Gary Tonin actually took a selfie and posted it to Instagram at Big Gord's wake with Big Gord, and everyone was like, man, that's disrespectful. And he's like, you didn't even know the guy. He would have thought this was cool. And I'm just
people really give him trash for that? That's funny.
Well, I mean, also, yeah, I was like, is this okay, man? I don't know.
Whatever. I thought it was paying him respect.
Oh yeah,
the dude lived a unique life. He would have loved that.
So I think we have no idea what the landscape of jiu-jitsu is going to look like in the Northeast anyway, with so much high-level talent. Nicky Rod just recently announced that he was also following Gordon and everybody else down there. John Danaher, mastermind of Henzo's NYC, moving down there as well. It looks like they're going to start a new affiliation. Yeah, and it's weird because I heard this news and immediately thought, oh, this is just Gordon trolling. He's not serious because he's fake retired before. He's done a bunch of stuff. He said he was going to compete in the gi. Look what happened. But then it's real. The people started buying property, and it looks like the gym is starting up in a little bit. So, how do you feel? How do you think this will affect the jiu-jitsu world going into 2021?
Well, I think it's definitely going to change the climate of training in Puerto Rico. I can already see Puerto Rico becoming a major hub for jiu-jitsu talent for the future. Not that it already isn't already. I'm sure there's amazing athletes on the Isle of Puerto Rico. They're genetic freaks down there. So having the inclusion of Gordon Ryan and John Danaher and, Mo Jassim's down there a lot. They were already setting up training camps. I could see lots and lots of things, particularly now in the climate that we're living in where guys just can't train. I think one of the reasons why we didn't see Gordon Ryan in as many events, and I don't want to speak for Gordon. I apologize if by chance he sees this. Please don't send me a nasty Facebook message correcting me. But it seems to me that part of the reasons why he's not competing as much as he is simply because he's not able to train as high a level as he'd like to. Because his gyms are starting to open. So now he's down in Miami. That's one of the reasons he quoted for leaving. But now he's down in Puerto Rico, where it's legal. Do whatever you want to. Run the streets. Do what you want. And he can start bringing people in from other parts of the country, other parts of the world to come to Puerto Rico and train. And I think we're going to start seeing more of Gordon Ryan in the competition circuit, more Gordon Ryan on professional events to be able to get his competition game back out there again.
Yeah, I'm really interested in the new faces that we're probably going to see out of whatever gym those guys start producing champions out of down there. But back home, I've talked about this before, but I'm really excited to see how the guys that are sticking around the Northeast kind of react to this big vacuum that's going to be created. Because you can assume that the guys that are leaving probably aren't going to be competing in as many shows in America for at least a little bit. They're going to be focused on building their gym down in Puerto Rico. So I'm thinking this could give some guys that have been, stuck on the undercards on a lot of shows, more opportunities. We start to create more stars. We get some newbies more time on the big stages. And I personally know, living up here and knowing some of the guys that are positioned to sort of take those spots, I'm really excited. I'm really excited to see the new meta, the new jiu-jitsu meta that we're probably going to see in 2021.
Jiu-jitsu is everywhere now. I can honestly say that, in my opinion, more than anything, when I think about this year as a whole, I think about this year as the onslaught of the new breed of jiu-jitsu competitor. We're starting to see guys like John Combs, like Roberto Jimenez, these William Tackett, these young, strong black belts that are well versed in the competition scene, the point scene, and the submission only scene, that are doing phenomenal, intricate jiu-jitsu, but also understand how to maintain and grind at a high level, and they have been training, since kids. The new American 18, 19-year-old jiu-jitsu practitioner, 22-year-old jiu-jitsu practitioner started training when they were 8, 9 years old, and they've already got 10 years of training and 15 years of training. And we're starting to see that. It's exciting to see the transition of that. It's going to be very exciting to see the future of these new young bucks becoming the legendary figures they're faced to become with.
I mean, the rate of really young, talented guys that are able to go toe to toe with, and in some cases beat seasoned black belts with a new way of teaching. We brought Jay Regobuto on a little while ago, and he talked about that. Jiu-jitsu is an ever-changing thing. It's not stagnant. There's some basic truths that we understand, but even some of those are being overturned. And I'm just excited as someone who doesn't need for it to be any one way. I'm not married to the status quo. I don't get anything out of that. I'm really excited to see what kind of changes we could see, because people that are coming in and leading the charge and being on the bleeding edge, they're going to reveal new methods and new techniques and new tricks for those of us that are hobbyists and or are not going to win worlds anytime soon. I mean, you could just go and do it again. I don't know. You've done it before, so you could do it again. I don't know. I'm just saying.
3 times. It's a big deal.
3 times. Hey, fucking don't sweep that under the rug. It's a big.
I was upset. I was upset that I didn't get beat this year. It was in Orlando. I should have figured I'd always suck it up, but I was still kind of dealing with that COVID stuff. I wasn't really ready for it.
You were, yeah. No, I'm not gonna totally excuse the match, but you also were just dealing with COVID. You were not right behind the scenes. You were not okay in a lot of ways leading up to that.
Yeah, but I don't want to use that for an excuse.
You were also.
Josh was awesome. But
Josh was great. You were facing a game opponent. I'm just saying, don't let this define how you're don't let that define how you're going to compete next time around.
Thanks, Kev. I appreciate that, buddy. Thanks for the motivational talk, man. Even a blue belt can inspire a black belt every once in a while, Kev.
Yeah, and just don't make me waste $200 again, man. All right.
More importantly,
I don't have that to spend.
Bet money on you.
I'm just like, everybody's like, dude, we're gonna make so much money, and you're like, I don't need that right now.
Yeah, I know. You don't want to tell them no. I'm like, I don't know. How much are you betting?
So, I want to talk about some like we saw a lot of really cool performances from everybody, like from a ton of people. Submission, I feel like submission. Personally, I found Submission Underground to be my favorite in terms of like the shows and the consistency with which
Complete
they were put on.
package. They got it down. It's on Fight Pass. I love Fight Pass. Chael Sutton's amazing. Great competition. Good names. They did a really good job of putting on a solid product.
Yeah, and although I do have to say that one of my other favorite matches of the year it's one that flew under the radar for a lot of people. It was Cyborg Lovato 3, Cyborg right. versus Rafael Lovato Jr. It was, Cyborg at that point hadn't fully shaken off the Nicky Rod controversy where he got beat at IBJJF. I think it was it ADCC or IBJJF? All right, he lost to Nicky Rod controversially. ADCC. Yeah. And then he fought him to a draw in their next time out. And a lot of people kind of thought, oh, is Cyborg on the way out, And then he went up against Rafael. Absolute war. We got to see Cyborg's foot sweeps. We got to see how aggressive and stout he is on the feet, just like unmovable, like a fucking
I was at that match side.
Yeah.
That's famously, again, something they got pushed under the rug because of COVID. It happened a long time ago. That was the famous no athlete got paid fiasco. It
was the sumo wrestling. It was the nonsense. It was like
what was it called? It wasn't called Fight Tournament. It was called Substars. Substars, right?
Substars. Yeah, I can't help but think just of man that was. We were so pissed about that. I remember everybody.
COVID hit like a month later, so that guy got a pass.
I mean, yeah. Didn't you say you knew it was kind of fugazi?
Yeah, I had been on a couple of that guy's events before. I competed on one of his events down in Miami, and I met him. And previously, his events were nice, but they were also kind of lower in, not necessarily lower in, but not anywhere near the range and the spectrum that he was trying to put on for this last event. And I personally had talked to the guy a few times, and I remember the few times I mentioned him, and I was like, wow, he's not the sharpest knife in the drawer. And then thinking to myself, like, how did this guy get himself caught up in this position to where he's putting out, I think it was $200,000 worth of payouts he was promising athletes for his event. And he had a huge venue to pay through, and he's getting in sumo wrestlers. It was just such a gargantuan event that was way out of this guy's realm of pulling off. And to find out, of course, obviously he was, not necessarily intentfully screwing people over, but really didn't understand the logistics of how to get people paid, and everybody got screwed.
Yeah, and I don't want to minimize how shitty that guy is and that event was for not paying the athletes, but I don't want to discount how great that match was.
Yes,
just because Cyborg proved to everybody he still has a place at the top of the heat. And Lovato, everyone was like, how is this guy going to put on a good show when he's focused on, Bellator, MMA, he's doing his thing. And he was absolutely incredible from like the back, constantly attacking. You could argue that under like fight to win rule sets, he would have won just because of all the attacks that he was lobbying up from the bottom. And Cyborg proved he's resilient. He's a master of whatever parameters he's given for a match. Like stayed safe, stayed healthy, got the golden point. And a lot of people came away thinking that's a great way for him to like end his big professional career. And then he absolutely went on a massive tear at Third Coast Grappling Kumite, at the tournaments. He, aside from Mason, he was one of the other guys who just had an incredible 2020.
I was going to say that too. I think if you talk about guys that really went on tour, I can remember a few times watching the tear that Cyborg went on and thought to myself, wow, like it's amazing that this guy has, he's been doing it now for well over a decade. I remember when I was a blue belt, Cyborg was one of the names. He won the ADCC Absolute. I think it was 2010 or 12 or something like that. So he had been training. He's been competing at a super high level. Cyborg was on top of the tier before we really had this massive explosion of professional jiu-jitsu that we're seeing now. Cyborg is one of the names that you spoke about as an elite. And here we are 10 years later, and he's still out there dominating against guys sometimes 15 years younger than he is. He goes out there against Barbosa. Barbosa's 25. Cyborg's up there 38, 40 years old now. It's impressive to see him be able to do that. And one more thing, just to give a special shout out, because as good as Cyborg was, friend of the show, fellow guest of the show, Bruno Bastos, was able to beat him in the finals of his division. I believe it was at the Masters Worlds this year. So shout out to Bruno Bastos, again, a legendary figure of the jiu-jitsu world. Very happy for him to be able to put on the show that he did and put on display he does to beat the legendary Cyborg. He deserves all the accolades. Bruno Bastos is the platinum standard for what I believe a jiu-jitsu practitioner should be in this world. So thank him for that.
There's, in a year like this, there's so many people that deserve a lot of thanks for keeping the ball rolling in this crazy world we all inhabit. And there's not enough time in the world to thank all of them. But are there any? I don't know. Is there anything we're forgetting? Do you think? Because I feel like we covered a lot.
The one thing I wanted to bring up, and it's not necessarily a competition thing. It's not necessarily about the world of competitive MMA or competitive jiu-jitsu. I just want to give big ups to Robert Drysdale for releasing his book, Opening Closed Guard. That was a huge piece of our jiu-jitsu world over the last 6 months in particular. I can't remember. I had more correspondence with Robert Drysdale. I think we're BFS now. It's kind of weird. I think I have a huge man crush on. I just texted him in the middle of the night. He texted me right back. We had a little thing going, and talking about his book, Open Closed Guard, which is obviously a book that describes the processes of his documentary with the same name when he's filming his documentary, and it tells the true story as truly as he can from a truly historical background of the story of jiu-jitsu. And it was amazing. If you haven't read it, I know we talked about it on pretty much every show. We interviewed him. I wrote an article about it. It's amazing. Robert Drysdale is amazing. And the book really helps to fill in some holes with some people that may not understand where the true lineage of jiu-jitsu comes from and kind of help tell that story. I
think that's a really good point, and I don't want to minimize that because it's yet another thing that kind of got swept under the rug because of COVID and delayed as a result, because he still had a lot of traveling to do. And it's a shame, because this book, the story that's painted just from the making of the documentary, is incredible. He's flying to get money from shady oligarchs, and he's trying to scramble together some funds, and people don't want him to. There's people saying he's pushing a narrative, and there's this established story that we were all told about the origins of jiu-jitsu. And it turns out it's for the most part fraudulent in many key aspects that make you just kind of raise your eyebrows. People have been saying half truths for this whole time. So if you have not, and you're still looking if you just got, grandma gave you some dollar bills for the holidays and you got nothing to spend it on, I would highly recommend you go pick up a book called Opening Closed Guard, which is the making of Closed Guard, documentary by Robert Drysdale, also written by Robert Drysdale. It is a phenomenal read, full endorsement from the JJT podcast, 5 stars. It is a nuts story if you have any interest on the origins of this sport.
Pretty cool. It's recitations of the interviews he did with a lot of the historical figures of jiu-jitsu. When he went to Japan, he went to Brazil, and he did some interviews in the U.S. And it tells a lot of the stories about when he was in these particular places. And they're honestly, and not trying to overdo it, there are certain moments in that book that, for a martial arts enthusiast like yourself and someone that lives, eats, breathes jiu-jitsu like myself, that are just absolutely beautiful. There's certain excerpts of that book that just take your breath away and make you really believe, wow, what an amazing thing jiu-jitsu is.
It is an amazing thing. And despite its best efforts, COVID couldn't keep it down.
Ain't keeping us down.
Kill us. We're still
ain't no beer flu keeping me down. Keep it jiu-jitsu.
And when the mutant aliens show up next year and only destroy jiu-jitsu gyms for some reason because the world hates us, we'll still find a way to train. All right.
I'll be arm locking aliens across the board, man.
Oh man, the aliens are notoriously susceptible to omoplatas.
It's very, very easy. Very easy to. Maybe not so much the heel hooks, but the arm bars are right there.
Oh, by the way, I don't know, did you see Submission Underground last night?
I didn't. I was ready to watch it, and I talk a lot of trash. I don't watch a lot of jiu-jitsu competition. You tell me what happens.
One thing I love about Sug is that a lot of events kind of tend to drag on. You're guaranteed in and out in like 2 hours.
Oh
for,
yeah,
like, the whole show.
they don't play around.
They're like,
oh, have a nice day. We'll see you later. See you next week.
They're just like, we gotta go. Come on.
Next month will be bigger.
Boogie, friend of the show, Richie Boogeyman Martinez had an incredible finish inside like 30 seconds. I think it was just like a rolling omoplata. You should check that out. It's probably they'll post it on YouTube. Probably.
I saw. I didn't see the clip, but I saw a little excerpt article talking about the different wins. I'll probably. You know what? I got a little time. I may plug that in and watch that right now and see what's coming on with that.
All right. Well, I think we shouldn't spend too much time kicking 2020 out the door because then it might try and stick around. So I think it's time to close it. I think it's time to close this last episode of the year. We'll try and get this up by midnight tonight so that you guys can, sort of look back on 2020 by tomorrow morning or in the afternoon.
Can I say one thing before we go, Kev? Just real quick before we shut, I got to get my emotional thing on New Year's Eve. I like to wax poetically whenever I get the opportunity to. But I'd like to first of all thank all of you, and I'm sure you're going to do the same, Kev. All of the viewers out there and all of the amazing guests we've had on the show because we've had some doozies. We've really have had some pretty impressive, amazing guests. Laura Sanko from the UFC. We had Robert Drysdale. A whole list of
Korshavikian,
Rodney. I can't think of his name. The Roddy Ferguson. Rondell Benjamin. Amazing. Robert Drysdale. Joe Lazone. So first of all, thank you to all of you for listening, and thank you for all the amazing guests that have come on. Because without you guys, me and Kev would just be talking to ourselves and not be able to continue to do things we do. And secondly, I just want to say that this year's been difficult. Obviously, no question about it. 2020 has been one of the hardest years that any of us could ever imagine. But believe it or not, it's actually been a pretty good year for me. And a pretty good year for Kevin in certain aspects. He's got engaged. He had some good things coming to himself. We started up the Aces Jiu-Jitsu Club article series. I'm editing for that. Kevin's been writing for that. Maria's been writing for a couple good writers for that. Good content we're putting out with that. We've been doing the podcast. I've been killing it with private lessons. So the point I'm trying to say is this. We can dwell on the horrible things that have happened this year. We can think about all the bad things and all the stuff that has happened to push us down and to divide us and to make this world more difficult. Or we could focus on the positive things, because every one of you can look back on something that you did to buckle down and get through the trauma and get through the hard places that have come up this year. And, through adversity and through situations of pain and suffering, sometimes greatness occurs. So focus on the great things you had to do to overcome that adversity and the amazing things you did to move on and plow through, and enjoy your new year when you think about that, man.
I would just like to put a pin on that. Obviously, like Kevin said, shout out to all the incredible guests that we've had over this wild ride we've been on. Nick Rodriguez. Oh my God, I'm blanking on so many.
Mr.
McDojo Life, Rob from McDojo Life.
Chris Howder, Nick the Tooth.
It's overwhelming when I really think about how long
it's amazing the amount of people we've had on here, the amazing jiu-jitsu talent that we've had on the show. Next year, I've already got 4 or 5 lined up. Barrett Yoshida, we've got Elizabeth Clay, we've got John Combs. Eventually, we're gonna get him on. There's plenty of talent out there. And if you're watching this show and you happen to come across it, come on to Jiu-Jitsu Times podcast. We'd love to talk to jiu-jitsu legends. Come on an hour.
When I talked about Kit, I put out a thank you around Thanksgiving because that was the anniversary of when we started the show. But really, this year has been so turbulent. I want to reiterate, I didn't think this was going to last past 10 episodes. I really didn't know. I really wasn't sure. I was in school at the time, and I thought this will just help me get another job. I thought maybe this will help me get a job at Spectrum or CBS or ESPN or something. And it's turned into one of the biggest tentpoles in my life. It's something I look forward to doing every single week. And the responses we've gotten, Martin Ford, a big movie star, hit me back just because jiu-jitsu is that kind of close-knit community. We've got some guests coming up that you wouldn't even believe. And they've grown from just, in some cases, guests to being really good friends and like acquaintances that we're all getting along with. And you've been around for all of it. You guys have been following us, supporting us, sharing our stuff and hitting us up in the comments sometimes to just tell us we're doing a good job. And all of it means a lot. It means a great deal when you support us. And we can't thank you enough for you sticking by us in this difficult time. And we can't wait for it to show you what we got coming down the pipeline, because it's going to be even better. Once COVID sort of lessens, I'm going to be doing a lot more traveling. We'll be trying to meet up in person at times once we get vaccinated. We've never hung out. It's a bummer. On that point, I want to say we've gotten to interview some incredible athletes and legends in the sport. But I want to say my favorite interview of 2020 and the show as a whole has been you, Kev. Getting to know you, my co-pilot, my podcast husband. Throughout all this craziness, you've been the most interesting and learned voice we've had on the show. I've learned a lot from you, and that I consider you a great friend. I want to thank you for all the demons you had to conquer in order to make this year one of your better ones. And this show wouldn't be a show without you. Couldn't do it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm going to go with Robert Drysdale, but you're cool too, kid.
Yeah. Go fuck yourself. All right. Hey, everybody, go watch on YouTube. I think Seth is going to put up that match where Kev lost like a dumb idiot. So
it's been a pleasure to but believe it or not, I'll say this one time and then we can quit kissing each other's ass. Like, I know you thank me a lot for being the talking head, because you say, well, without you, I'm just some dude. But like, Kev, you really put this thing together. Like, if it wasn't for you doing all the behind the scenes stuff, doing all the back end stuff, like, I'm just some dude with a laptop and a microphone that talks about jiu-jitsu. Like, you're the one that really makes this thing happen.
three world's medals, but who's
a couple cool gold medals. No big deal.
I don't think we need to pat ourselves on the back anymore. So I think that the only way to appropriately close out this show is just one more time thanking everybody that's a positive part of this big community, this big family we're all members of. We've all been helping each other out in a lot of ways. And if you're a dick, get the hell out. We don't like you. Stop being a dick or leave. That's all I got to say about that.
No judges needed, folks. No judges needed.
No judges needed. Just go buy the stuff. Have you not bought it yet? Are you crazy?
JJT, 20% off. It's an amazing discount.
And with that, I just want to say 2020, you've been just a massive pain in the ass. You've been the pebble in everybody's shoe for about a year now. Oddly enough, you started with wildfires. That wasn't enough. You included civil riots and an election year. And
Kobe Bryant died.
Yeah,
these are all the things we're forgetting about.
Kobe Bryant died. We lost the Black Panther, Chadwick Boseman, and then the pandemic shut down the planet. You suck so bad.
Hopefully we don't kick off 2021 with the Civil War. We'll see how that
goes. Away. No one wants you here. You couldn't kill us. We're still here. And yeah, that's it. We made it, folks. We made it. And I want you to take a moment to think about that. Whatever troubles you're going through in life, if you're listening to this, that means you made it. That means you got through to the end, and there's a whole new year. There's a new chance to start over and recommit to things you might have let fall by the wayside. I'm going to start running again. I got about 20 pounds to lose. I'm going to be a nicer guy. I'm going to be a better jiu-jitsu athlete. I'm going to go to practice more. I'm not going to get so bogged down with losing. And I'm going to try and
you're even losing me. Let's do
those are my BJJ resolutions, and if you got some resolutions, tweet them out, hashtag BJJ resolutions, see what you're going to improve on, work on that closed guard that sucks. But yeah, that's about it. You got anything else, Kev?
Good stuff, man. Good night. Let me put my thumb up and call it a day.
All right. I'm gonna take the hat off. I'm gonna crack my back, and me and the lady are gonna order some Chinese food. To all of you out there, thank you for being our passengers on this wild ride of 2020. And we hope you'll re-up your ticket for 2021, because we're not going anywhere, baby. We're only gonna ramp up. We're gonna get bigger, meaner, and leaner, and we're never gonna go away. JJT podcast, 100 years, 200 years, 5,000 episodes, baby. That being said, I have been your host, Mr. Kevin Bradley, joined as always by my co-host, Mr. Kevin Gallagher. Thank you. We love you, and have a happy new year.
Happy New Year's, guys. Take it easy.
Happy New Year. Woo!